Story 1. Escaping an abusive home only to find myself living with an abusive husband was a real letdown. I thought I was smarter than that. I had to get out of that situation as well. I learned my lesson though. The first sign of a red flag that a man had any sort of temper, I ended whatever relationship had been forming, no matter how I felt about him. Story 2. Losing someone close to me without getting a chance to say goodbye changed the way I see life and relationships forever. Story 3. I was adopted by a family at age 7, only for them to drop me off at the hospital at age 12 because they could not do parenting anymore. I was not a bad kid. I read a lot, kept to myself, and did well in school. The state said they could not take me because I did not meet any criteria. I was then placed in foster care after begging repeatedly. That new family abused me in every possible way until I ran away at age 17. I lived under a different name for a year. When I turned 18, I was finally free. The system failed me. Abandonment is a harsh reality. Story 4. Divorce can deeply affect a person, especially when the person who replaced you was once called a friend. However, it can either break you or strengthen you. Story 5. I dated someone who manipulated me into thinking I had dissociative identity disorder. The manipulation was that severe. In the end, they disappeared, and I had to put the broken pieces of my mind back together. Story 6. Being in love with someone you can never have, desiring them and wanting them every day, even though you cannot, does not seem to ever really go away. Story 7. My first kiss and losing my virginity when I wanted to wait until marriage. I thought I was going to a house party, but when I got there, he came out and walked me to his car. I was in a strange neighborhood and had taken an Uber there, so I felt stranded. I wish that once I realized we weren't going to be around other people, I had called another Uber to leave. Instead, I went with him, I guess to be agreeable like girls are supposed to be. He kept asking to kiss me, and I said no at least a dozen times before he convinced me. I wanted to wait until marriage and have my first kiss with someone who cared about me. He brought me to a park and we got into the back seat. He pinned me down while grinning and told me to try to move. I tried to move and realized just how much stronger he was than me. He laughed when he saw my fear and said that even if I wanted to get away, I couldn't. He then started touching me and asked which I hated more, being kissed or being touched in that way. I said I hated being kissed more because kissing felt much more intimate. He begged repeatedly to have sex, but I kept saying no. He asked so many times, saying things like, just for 1 second, just the tip, or, come on, you're so boring. I realized the position I was in. I was locked in someone else's car at midnight, at least 30 minutes from home, with a guy much bigger than me who clearly couldn't take no for an answer and liked seeing me scared. After about 17 times of saying no, I eventually said, fine. I was so sad and felt like my dreams had already gone out the window, so I thought if I could just get this over with, I could get out of there. Luckily, he tried to put it in, but I was so scared and too tight or clenched, and he got erectile dysfunction, so he couldn't. When that happened, he said it was all my fault and yelled at me, making me perform oral sex. After that night, I lost sight of who I was and who I wanted to be. This was in 2017. I was 17 on the night before Thanksgiving. I felt so disgusted with myself, but also so exhausted that once I finally got home, I fell asleep in those clothes on top of my bed because I was too disgusted to get into my bed without showering. I slept through our Thanksgiving lunch. I am not a deep sleeper at all, but apparently, my mom came into my room to try to wake me, and she couldn't. She probably thought I was on drugs or something because I saw the disappointment on her face. My grandfather, my biggest supporter in life and someone who always believed in me, supported my dreams, and unconditionally loved me, was so sad that I didn't come, and I was too. Since then, my relationships have continued to be sad, unhealthy, and with scary men, no matter how hard I try to stop it. I think I now recognize who is safe and who isn't, so hopefully it won't happen again, but in 2 other relationships, the guy wasn't horrible to me until 9 months and 2.5 years. I feel like I can't ever be sure that I'm safe. I'll never get to be the person I feel like deep down. I still feel like that girl whose biggest dream was to find someone who loves her and who could see her as a person before they started looking for what she could offer them. What hurts now is that at 25, I've made the best friends in my life, and somehow, three of those girls I'm closest to are all living out my dream of waiting until marriage. I am so happy for them, but also devastated for myself and disgusted by myself for the choices I made that night and the choices I made afterward because I didn't feel like I had any value left. Part of me still wishes to meet the man of my dreams who wants to know me, sees my depth and heart, and wants to protect it. The other part of me sees who is out there and how I'm treated, and I don't know if I'll ever meet someone who could love me after all of that when there are so many beautiful, kind, successful women out there, and those women wouldn't make their partner see the world the way I do. They also wouldn't have to find out what awful circumstances and a lack of self-worth look like in a woman. It weighs on me every moment of every day that I'm nowhere close to the woman I wanted to be, and that the amazing things I experience in life will never be enough to make up for all of the horrible things that have happened. I do have a great life in every other area. Great friends, a good job, an amazing relationship with my very supportive family. But that huge part of my life is always there, even after decades of therapy. I have no idea how to date. People have left when I tell them I want to wait to get to know each other before moving forward and that I want to wait until marriage. Some seem to get bored of me or put off by my personality, and I guess they are just attracted to my looks. I also feel like I shouldn't share this with people I date because it's depressing, but also because it might show them how much others have gotten away with or just how much I have been taken advantage of. My friends can sympathize with the things they know, but I can see it in their eyes that they can't really understand the impact this has on me. It makes me feel like I'll never be able to find someone who can really see me or understand my heart. I'm exhausted carrying around something I can never change, but also have to be so aware of to protect myself in ways I couldn't when I was younger. Story 8. Traumatic brain injury and status migrainosis for more than 6 months. Life is fundamentally different after experiencing that much pain for that long. Story 9. I was raped a couple of times, and my mother thought I was lying. She took their side and showed it. When I asked her why she didn't believe me, she just said, "Because," and stopped. She truly thought I was making it up. To add, I asked her years later, 13 years after the first incidents and 5 years after the second. This woman did not believe me for years. Story 10. Volunteering abroad and in underserved communities. I grew up upper middle class by American standards, which was a major advantage in life that I never fully appreciated until signing up for a few Doctors Without Borders type programs. My role was mostly performing surgeries in areas where most people had literally never seen a dentist because they either could not afford it or had no means of getting to one. Seeing firsthand the level of poverty some people deal with every day really transformed my perspective on life in general. Story 11. Years of emotional abuse and gaslighting by the family, only for my parents to completely lose control. They still get praised for how good I turned out. Story 12. When my husband went out one night and never came home, we had 2 children together. I haven't seen him in 18 years. The worst part is that it didn't hurt me as much as it did my children, and they will forever be traumatized. Time heals, but it still hurts. Story 13. I escaped an abusive home, but that was not the worst of it. The worst was every day after. The flashbacks, the panic attacks, reliving it every time I try to sleep. I need therapy. Story 14. Being cheated on, then shortly after, my granddad, who I was really close to, passed away unexpectedly. That same day, the girl who cheated on me asked if she could use his truck to visit the guy she cheated on me with and said, "Well, it's not like he is using it." After I said no, she said, "This is why I cheated on you," and sent me a photo of them kissing. I ended up having an extremely bad mental breakdown and had to be sent to the hospital. Story 15. Losing most of the people I cared about and trusted caused serious trust issues and crippling anxiety that I seemingly cannot overcome even years later. Story 16. Spending days in a makeshift intensive care unit, just a room in the emergency room as they ran out of beds, hoping and telling my little brother to wake up while he is intubated. He tried to take his own life with random household cleaning supplies and a variety of prescription and over-the-counter medications. The doctors and police officers would not tell me anything because he is an adult and I am just family. Story 17. It is a list of several things. Most recently, I was divorced by my ex-wife because she thought I was not enough for her intimately. Story 18. My sister, age 24, has always been abusive, but 5 or 6 years ago, it reached a breaking point. She had just returned from a 3-day stay at a mental hospital, where she refused treatment and checked herself out because she was 18 at the time. My mom picked me up from a friend's house, and my sister was in the car. Everything was normal, chatting and having fun. My sister needed to go to a craft store for a couple of things and told me I could get whatever I wanted. After the craft store, she started getting mean and snarky, and when we got home, things escalated. My mom splashed a glass of water in her face to try to snap her out of it and started recording. This wasn't the best move because she used to record my sister during moments like this, so she could show her later that it wasn't that serious. My sister lost it. She started swinging at my mom. Mom gave me the phone to continue recording. My sister backed herself into a corner, throwing random punches, slaps, and kicks at my mom. I stepped in. She literally hoisted herself onto the counter and tried to kick me in the stomach with both feet. So I hit her back. She tried to punch me and the fight continued. My mom grabbed her and threw her toward the front door, screaming, "Get out of my house. You are not welcome anymore." Mom was putting her foot down. My sister tried to land another blow on my mom, and my mom broke my sister's pinky. My sister screamed, "You broke my pinky?" And my mom finally got her out of the house and told me to lock all the doors, so I was running around locking them. I locked all the doors except one. We had a breezeway connecting to the mudroom in our old house. I forgot to lock the door from the breezeway to the mudroom. Suddenly, I heard pounding on the door from the mudroom to the kitchen. I pointed the phone, still recording, at the door and saw my sister beating on it. I joked, "No, I know this girl isn't trying to get in." And stupid girl, I locked the door. The first time she told me she wished I was never born, I was 5 years old. I was 16 at the time, so that was 11 years of torment and abuse. I didn't care that she was hurting. Look at what she did to our family. I swear it was the worst mistake I've ever made. She punched through the window of the door, reached through the hole and unlocked the door from the inside, all while bleeding everywhere. Glass came at me full force, getting in my shirt, my pants, my bra, and all in my hair. I screamed for my mom, who was on the phone with the police, while my sister begged me for ice or a bandage. I screamed at her to get out and gave her no attention. At that point, I was sticking my hands in the ice bin in our freezer to bring myself back to reality. Finally, my mom dragged her back outside, and the police were almost there. She was not taken to the station and was not charged. We should have pressed charges. Now I am left traumatized and without a sister. She also did something recently that I might post about later, but I don't know if I want to relive that right now. Story 19. I was sexually abused by my older sibling for 3 years. I had considered them like a better version of my father. 15 years later, they tried to apologize but shifted the blame onto me and my emotionally abusive father for their actions. Story 20. My mother died when I was a child. Nothing since has come close to that in terms of grief, shock, and lifelong consequences. Story 21. Seeing my mother have a seizure came on suddenly while we were sitting down watching television. I remember just holding her, comforting her with words, and asking God to help, even though I am not religious. She came back and was staring wide-eyed for a little while, then regained awareness but had no idea what had happened. She was more concerned about my face. No one in my family is religious, but at that time it was just instinct to ask God for help. Who knows if it did anything, but at least she didn't die. We went to the hospital. Her vitals and everything were fine. We never found out the cause, and she has never had one since. This was about 10 years ago. I was a young teenager and she was in her early 30s. Story 22. Could be the 7 or more car wrecks I have been in that were not my fault, or the relentless bullying from both teachers and classmates in school. It could be when my home was broken into and violated by a trusted friend and family member, or trying to provide for my family during the preventable housing bubble burst. Maybe it was the multiple surgeries my son had to endure as a young boy, or my being hospitalized with 2 medical emergencies and losing 2 grandparents within 48 hours. It might be when a local dealership ripped me off by fixing my car, forcing me to limp through several years with it, or perhaps learning about the deaths of 3 friends in a 6-week period earlier this year. Pick one. Story 23. My mother died of an overdose when I was 15 in the late 1990s. I do not think I will ever get over it, but all these years later I can sit with it, and sobriety has given me some perspective I did not have when I was younger. Failing to deal with my grief led me down a path that was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I knew how I was going to end up when I was a teenager, but as I got older I could no longer see what others could. It took until my late 30s, and the death of my father to begin to snap out of it after a lifetime of self-inflicted trauma. I still feel like I left it 10 years too late, but I have been sober for nearly 5 years now. I am breaking the cycle once and for all. Thank you for listening. Story 24. When my 6-year-old daughter's pediatrician asked if she could speak to me privately during what was supposed to be a routine checkup, I learned that her mother's boyfriend had been touching her inappropriately. This led to events that turned my life upside down as I fought to keep her safe. Story 25. Always my dad. He punched a window, severing an artery in his arm. I watched as he passed out and the flesh slid down his bone. He lived. He shot himself in the head. He lived. He broke into our house and held us all at gunpoint. He shot at my mom but luckily missed. He went to prison for 5 years for aggravated robbery. He took a plea deal that reduced the charge from attempted murder. He got into a wreck while high on methamphetamine, killing 2 people. He got away with it. I haven't spoken to him in 2 years and finally feel the weight lifted off my shoulders. Story 26. A horse threw its rider and bolted into a busy road. Came out from behind the trees suddenly, and I hit it with the car. I tried to swerve and brake, but there was nothing I could do. The horse had to be put to sleep. He was so beautiful. I love animals and I would never hurt one, so it broke my heart. I still struggle to think about it. More than 20 years later, I still cannot watch films with horses in them. It is something I cannot forgive myself for, and I repeatedly wonder if there was anything I could have done differently. Story 27. Being sexually harassed while I was still learning about my diagnosis of depression, anxiety, and epilepsy was very difficult. I also have severe emetophobia and social anxiety disorder, so almost everything feels traumatic. Story 28. I had a few experiences, but one that stands out is being involved in an attempted child trafficking incident when I was 11. I was on holiday, and my parents did not research the area well enough. It turned out to be one of the hot spots for child sex trafficking. Our hotel was part of the scheme. The security guards tried to kidnap some of the children. I was aware enough to fight them off, thank God. In that fight or flight moment, I chose to fight. I kicked an armed man and escaped into a different room, where I managed to call the police. It is a very long story, but it completely changed my life, as one can imagine. Story 29. Some people will twist my words and turn them into something I never meant. It messed with my brain and created a fear of speaking to anybody. Story 30. My entire childhood was filled with violence and hurt. I was taken to my dad's girlfriend, the woman he cheated on my mom with. I did not know who she was, and they were all over each other at the other end of the couch. I had to say I needed to use the bathroom. Then he brought me to a carnival, forcing me to hold both their hands. It was confusing. My mom and sisters were waiting for us at home. There were times when my mom was very unstable, telling me she would have hung herself in the shed when I came home from school, only to find her preparing dinner or doing something else. Story 31. Multiple failed suicide attempts. I am fine now and I am so glad they failed, but the days and weeks after having to stay in hospitals were traumatizing. Story 32. It was not a singular event, but a series of events over a span of 5 years. 3 people very close to me, including my father, took their lives during that time frame. Story 33. Walking into the emergency room with a sore neck and collapsing, becoming quadriplegic, paralyzed from my chest down. Story 34. Having burning camping fuel accidentally thrown onto me by a fellow Boy Scout and then being on fire was a traumatic experience. I would say being an 11-year-old on fire was probably the most traumatic experience. aside from the deaths of friends and family. Story 35. 10,000,000% my abortion pales in comparison to rape and kidnapping. Also, my goldfish Goldie going missing and then me finding her all dried up under the dining room table. Dead. She must have jumped out of her bowl. That definitely affected my brain more than the two above, which is so wild to me. I think my brain is just easily traumatized, to be honest. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.